Well, I have mentioned quite a few times on this show. I watched season 7 again recently because I wanted to have everything fresh.
Yeah.
Because it always goes away. You know, even if I think I know what's up, there are details that I missed the first time and whatever. And the Beyond the Wall episode, which, you know, no spoilers, but it's a very important episode.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why I watched that again. It was very traumatizing the first time, and it was worse the second time, and it ruined my week.
Oh no.
Because it's so sad. It's so sad for so many reasons. But yeah, there's, you know, I'm pro dragon. I root for the dragons.
Yeah. You know, I'll tell you what, maybe I'll just actually download GOT on my phone, because you can download it now on HBO, on the HBO app, right? You can download the episodes for offline play.
Oh, I thought you had been able to for some time.
No, yeah. I'm not saying just confirming, because I don't think I've ever done it.
There was a time in the distant past when you couldn't download episodes for offline play from various even Netflix.
But I think I have a red eye going back to Syracuse tomorrow.
Oh, well, Land of the Orange Men.
No, Orange, Tom. It's 2019.
Yeah. Oh, I thought they were related to the Northern Ireland. Is that not?
No. Very
I have that wrong.
Nor is it actually the Syracuse nickname has gone through many poorly chosen names, including they deny this, that they got to Orangemen based on their previous mascot, which was the Saltine Warrior, who is a Indian caricature. They got out of that early enough and just said, oh no, Orange Man means a sentient orange.
Yeah, that's a good one, Syracuse.
Yeah,
clever.
But then they went from the gendered men and women to just the orange. So now it is just the Syracuse Orange men's team and the Syracuse Orange women's team and all the athletics that they compete in.
Of course. But and the Cincinnati Redlegs are now the Reds, right? Is that right? I
believe so.
Yeah. Okay. Takes me a while to catch up on this stuff.
But yeah, I'll be on a panel for Dio Palooza, the Daily Orange, the
fantastic
newspaper. I'm on the non-traditional jobs panel. This job is non-traditional.
Gotcha.
So what, you're gonna help everybody learn how to do something kind of crazy with their career?
Eventually work at the Washington Post or Boston Globe.
Right.
That's the crazy thing that I'm gonna extol the virtues of not getting into the print paper pipeline.
Well, we should probably do the traditional thing of Daily Tech News Show at 1:30. Sarah, would you be so kind as to read line 3 today?
I would.
That's very nice of you.
I know.
Is everyone prepared?
Well,
indeed.
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. In 3, 2.
Ed DeWald has supported independent tech news directly for...
Hold on. So it's entirely my fault. I slipped. My finger slipped on the mouse.
That's all right. Why do you use a mouse?
Here we go.
Every slippery.
3, 2.
Ed DeWald has supported independent tech news directly for 5 years. Be like Ed and become a DTNS member at patreon.com/DTNS.
This is the Daily Tech News for Thursday, April 11th, 2019 in Los Angeles. I'm Tom Merritt.
And from Studio Feline, I'm Sarah Lane.
From the shores of Lake Merritt, I'm Justin Robert Young.
And I'm the show's producer, Roger Chang.
One of these days, I'll come from the shores of Lake Young. You
should find a Lake Young.
Yeah.
There's got to be a few.
I'm sure that there's a Lake Young somewhere.
Or Lake Lane, Lake Chang. I'll find one of them anyway.
If there isn't a Lake Lane, get on it, people.
We are going to talk about the fact that Bloomberg has a report out describing how Amazon team members, as well as Apple and Google, listen to some recordings made by voice assistants and whether or not that bothers us. But let's start with a few tech things you should know.
At the Google Cloud Next conference, the company announced that Google Plus for Enterprise, which is not being shut down like the consumer network, will be rebranded as Google Currents. If the name sounds familiar, it was also the name of a previous Google magazine app.
Pre-order reservations for the Samsung Galaxy Fold open Friday, April 12th. No money is required to reserve the right to pre-order. The $1,980 device will be released April 26th.
In a statement, the Netherlands Authority for Consumers and Markets said it will investigate Apple for abusing a dominant market position, quote, by giving preferential treatment to its own apps. The investigation will center on Apple and its App Store, which has received the most complaints, but the regulator said it's also going to ask app makers to flag any problems on that Google Play Store as well, and they might look into that if they get enough complaints. Let's talk a little bit about the arrest of Julian Assange.
The U.S. Department of Justice has charged Julian Assange with conspiracy to commit computer intrusion of a classified computer system. The indictment accuses Assange of helping Chelsea Manning in, quote, cracking a password stored on the United States Department of Defense computers connected to the secret Internet Protocol Network, unquote, a United States government network used for classified documents and communications. The Washington Post printed excerpts of the chat between Assange and Manning, where Assange says he gives hashes of passwords to our guys to crack. Ecuador removed its asylum protection of Assange Thursday, accusing him of intervening in the internal affairs of other states. He has been arrested on a charge of breaching bail in the UK, and the extradition request has been filed by the United States. So it seems that he's coming to America.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he's been arrested twice. The original reason he went into asylum in Ecuador was to avoid being arrested for charges relating to a case in, I believe, Sweden.
Yeah.
That case has expired, but the avoidance of the arrest and jumping bail has not. So he'll definitely face that, but it sounds like he'll be extradited to the U.S. Everyone was expecting that, but they were expecting him to be charged with publication, and everybody was gearing up for a free press fight in the court. Turns out, at least in the court, we're not going to get a free press fight. That the Department of Justice is going after him for assisting Manning by saying, hey, we'll help you crack that password. And they're going to say, well, you provided aid and assistance to somebody who was violating Computer Fraud and Abuse Acts.
Now, Assange's lawyers and supporters will certainly make this into a free press fight. That is their statement reflects
in the court of public opinion. Absolutely, yeah. I think you're right.
And they are going to try to make the case that, look, these things are connected. That you can parse between like how you get the information and if you publish the information, but ultimately this was a public good that you cannot prove that this information was incorrect. And so, therefore, it should be protected under the First Amendment. Whether or not that will fall on sympathetic ears remains to be seen.
I will add that the case that Sweden has, actually, the statute of limitations ends this August. So there is a potential that they could rebring that case back up. The officials in Sweden dropped the case because there was a very low probability of getting him into custody. But now that this has occurred, that might change.
Everything I've read says that it's probably not going to change, but that's a fair point to note there. Really, what we're talking about it on Daily Tech News Show for, though, is because he's going to face a computer intrusion charge that can carry a very weighty punishment. We talk a lot about how it can carry punishments for fairly innocuous things. This is a case where what he did could be considered somewhat innocuous, which is like, hey, Manning, I'll help you meet some guys who can help you crack this hash password. But because he was involved in that, even though he didn't actually do any of the hacking himself, the act in the United States allows them to prosecute Julian Assange on those charges.
Security researchers Maddie Van Hoof and Eyal Ronen disclosed 5 vulnerabilities being called Dragonblood that affect WPA3 Wi-Fi security and authentication. They include a denial of service attack, 2 downgrade attacks, and 2 side channel information leaks. The last 4 of those can be used to exfiltrate user passwords by exploiting flaws in the Dragonfly key exchange. The downgrade attacks caused the network to use an older and secure password exchange system, and the side channel leaks forced networks to use leaky algorithms that allow a password to be discovered after repeated attacks. The Wi-Fi Alliance announced a security update for the WPA3 standard to mitigate the attacks, and vendors must now integrate the changes into their firmware.
Yeah, I mean, the upshot for most people is, and as always, as I said on our Facebook group today, always keep your routers up to date, whether you hear about this kind of story or not. But yes, make sure when your firmware update comes next that you do as you always do. I know you always do it.
Yep.
Get that firmware up to date. These are offline dictionary attacks that are made possible by these vulnerabilities, and it's good news that security researchers found them and are allowing them to get patched now.
Yeah, that's really the man. I wonder if we could have some kind of like rubric or database for like time between first understanding and disclosure. Like that there should be some sort of like, hey, we've caught this in the wild. It doesn't seem to be being circulated on certain forums where ne'er-do-wells could get to them.
Yeah, it's not in the wild if you haven't caught it being circulated. Just to use the industry standard terms, but I know what you mean. Like, we found this and we made sure that it's not there. And there actually are disclosure rules about that and how long it's okay to keep it secret and all that sort of stuff. So yeah. Acer announced its Concept D line of laptops marketed at people who do video editing and illustration. The Concept D9 is a transforming laptop with a 17.3-inch 4K display, built-in Wacom's pen support, has a 9th gen Core i9 processor, up to 32 gigabytes of RAM, an RTX 2080 NVIDIA GPU, up to a terabyte of NVMe SSD storage. That's the flagship. The Concept D7 laptop has a 15.6-inch 4K display with 9th gen Core 7 and RTX 2080 Max Q. Everything else is pretty much the same. And then the Concept D5 drops down to the 8th gen Core i7 or i5, the Radeon RX Vega M graphics card, and a max of 16 gigabytes of RAM. They're all targeted towards creators, though, with some pretty beefy specs. No prices or release dates yet. There were also 2 Concept D desktops, the 500 with a 9th gen Core i9 NVIDIA Quadro RTX 400 GPU and up to 64 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM, coming in June for about $1,600 to start. But the pièce de résistance is the Concept D900 with dual Xeon Gold processors with 40 cores, NVIDIA's Quadro RTX 6000 GPU, and up to 192 gigabytes of RAM, all for only $20,000.
Oh, well, my birthday's coming up.
You know what to get.
So Tom, who would be the target demo for these?
People who are frustrated with that keyboard on the MacBook Pro and other things about the MacBook Pro. I mean, or people who are maybe into the Surface right now and its creative abilities, video editors, folks doing illustration, etc.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm somewhat in the market for a machine that can crunch video data faster than what my MacBook Pro, which is a decent machine, is able to do. I'm getting a lot of system overload stuff. Moving into the Windows world, that could be a deterrent for Mac folks, certainly. But as somebody who goes back and forth between both of the OSs, I like the idea of a 17.3-inch 4K display, and the pen support as well is something that I think once you get used to it, and I know Scott Johnson would back me up on this, you can't really live without it. So that is going to be really attractive to video editors, either who are working this way already or who are looking to work this way, potentially for something that's competitive. We don't know the prices yet, but assuming that there are competitive prices, these are really nice specs.
NVIDIA has released a driver that lets you turn on ray tracing effects in the GeForce GTX 10 and 16 series cards, like the GTX 1080 and GTX 1660. For those not keeping close track, ray tracing is one of the big advantages of getting an RTX card. Through only Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Battlefield 5, and Metro Exodus yet support it. NVIDIA's own benchmarks show none of the GTX card get beyond 25 frames per second on Tomb Raider, except the 1080 Ti, which hits 34 frames per second. The RTX cards range from 44 to 84 frames per second.
So this is really NVIDIA trying to get people to buy RTX cards by saying, hey, we'll let you try ray tracing on our GTX cards and you'll see just how badly you need those RTX cards.
If you want to eat garbage, you can. Congratulations.
The question is whether anyone wants to eat garbage, right? Like, there's only 3 games with ray tracing. If there was a big demand for these ray tracing games, then this Gambit might work better. I'm not sure that people are that hungry for it yet, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's just another option. Some people want to use it. They want to experience it, even if it's in a lower FPS mode. And maybe it is just even a little try before you buy. You just want to see what it might look like in a lesser thing and then say, ooh, but imagine how buttery smooth it might
imagine
look.
If I wasn't watching a slideshow of this video game, but actual flowing video.
Yeah.
All I need is that RTX card. And also if you've got a 1080 Ti, there's some good news about how good its frame rate was with the new ray tracing driver. Pretty nice.
Ford CEO Jim Hackett told the Detroit Economic Club on Tuesday, "We overestimated the arrival of autonomous vehicles." Now, Ford still plans to launch an autonomous car fleet in 2021, but it will be geofenced because, in Hackett's words, the problem is so complex. Hackett still believes that fully autonomous vehicles will come, saying, quote, "Logistics and ride structures and cities all get redesigned. I won't be in charge of Ford when this is going on, but I see it clearly." Ford is also testing its autonomous vehicles in Miami, Washington, D.C., and Detroit currently.
Yeah, if you didn't realize it, Ford is actually out there along with Waymo and Uber and Nuro and all these other companies that are getting their business plans together for offering autonomous cars, usually as fleets, and that's what the 2021 date is about. For years, people have been writing into this show saying, I don't know. I think autonomous cars are a lot farther out than these companies are saying because of X, Y, and Z. And up until now, we really haven't had any executive of a company say they weren't. Then we get this, the Ford CEO saying, yeah, maybe not. Maybe 2021 for some kind of geofenced self-driving cars, but not maybe what we were expecting. We have Uber out there delaying their plans, which you, of course, can attribute to the fact that they had a fatality, which set them back. That could be part of that. And then you have Waymo out there offering commercial service to a beta test group, and everyone's waiting for them to expand that, and we're not hearing from them. So I don't know. Where do you guys think this puts this?
Well, before the show, my knee-jerk reaction was like, well, it's Ford. It's a big company. They've been in the game for a long time and doing it the old way of cars. And you said, well, no. I mean, Ford is definitely at the forefront of technology when it comes to autonomous vehicles and what the competitors are doing. It's definitely on an even playing field. So it's not because Ford is behind the times or can't keep up. But myself, and I know certain guests on this show over the last couple of years, every once in a while, you hear someone being like, in 6 months, all Ubers are just going to be autonomous. And you think that doesn't seem possible. And regulatory reasons are the things that always that trip me up, because it's not so much that the technology doesn't work, but there are so many reasons that only certain cities are test beds for this sort of thing. And, what's a real rollout going to look like? And yeah, it's not right around the corner after all.
It's not. And this is Ford basically taking this from the think about this now to literally the CEO saying, don't think that this is going to be a large scale reality until I'm no longer the CEO. So do not expect any announcement from me about how I'm launching this gigantic new initiative.
You guys are going to figure it out. I won't be here,
but I see it clearly, folks.
Yeah, you're going to get it. You're going to get it.
Nail it, guys. I'm so proud of all of you from here in the past. To me, this is Ford saying, look, we thought we would be able to have a product that could swim amongst the chaos that is our streets now. At this point, we obviously want to continue to be in the game. We want to have the solution for when the moment meets it. But we are looking at the large scale impact of this economically for Ford to be once the cities are designing autonomous only lanes and stuff like that, and that city planning is wrapped around this idea and not just, hey, I hopped in my car in the driveway, I hit the button, and now I go to sleep because I'm on my way to work.
Yeah, and another aspect of this is Ford has been doing a lot of cutbacks in cost, and it may be that part of the reason that they're cutting back on their estimates is they know how much money it would take to stay on track. Maybe it's not just a matter of technology, but the amount of money they would have to throw at the R&D, and they're just like, you know what, it's just not worth it because there's still a chance that it won't hit on time. So let's just scale back our expectations.
And one more thing to your point with Uber, like Uber and Lyft, ride sharing in general, and theoretically what that market would look like in an autonomous car world, you need the buyers to buy the fleets, right? Like you need those companies that are buying. If Uber is taking a step back in their own technology, then the question of where those buyers are, where those buyers are going to be, is a big blank space.
Hey, folks, if you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes, don't forget you can subscribe to dailytechheadlines.com. So, Bloomberg spoke to 7 Amazon staff members who review recordings from Amazon Voice Services in order to improve responses. Now, there are things to get upset about in this story, but I want to start by setting the table at that's not a bad thing. Having Amazon employees, actual humans, reviewing recordings in order to help train machine learning is a perfectly reasonable thing to do to improve machine learning. It's all about how you implement that plan, which is what we're going to get into. But actually, I'm going to talk to Karen Howe from MIT Technology Review this weekend. You'll get this in the feed about what machine learning is. And I think after you hear that, if you get a better explanation of how machine learning actually works beyond the hype, you'll understand that, oh, okay, so they're improving the training data set. That's a good thing. However, it's all the devil's always in the details of how you go about implementing that human review. According to Bloomberg, Amazon's not alone. Apple and Google also have staff reviewing recordings to help improve systems. For Amazon, reviewers will transcribe and annotate voice clips and then add them to data for the machine learning algorithm to use to improve. So an example given in the Bloomberg article is a worker in Boston who said they would just they would scan through for people saying Taylor Swift and then mark that to make sure that the algorithm knew when they say Taylor Swift, they're not saying 2 separate words. They're talking about the musical artist, and that would improve recognition. And don't get the impression that all they did was help Taylor Swift. This is just one example among thousands and millions. Amazon said in a statement to Bloomberg, it does this to, quote, an extremely small sample of Alexa voice recordings, and claimed, quote, employees do not have direct access to information that can identify the person or account as part of this workflow. All information is treated with high confidentiality, and we use multi-factor authentication to restrict access, service encryption, and audits of control environment to protect it. Those are the right words to say. Multi-factor encryption, limited information, great. However, a screenshot that Bloomberg got showed that when a reviewer is looking at the recordings, they see an account number, a customer first name, and a device serial number. That's a lot of information to have on somebody. According to a white paper from Apple, Apple voice recordings are linked to a random ID number, which is reset every time Siri turns off. So you can't even link a number with a person. And those ID numbers are stripped from any voice recording kept for more than 6 months. And human reviewers don't even receive that random ID. Google says its clips are not associated with personally identifiable information, and voices are distorted to disguise the customer's voice. Okay, that's kind of interesting. So let's talk for a second real quick about what smart speakers do. They have a mic and a small buffer that checks for a wake word. This is where a lot of confusion comes in. This buffer is continually emptied. No security researcher has found that any speaker continuously sends that voice data to a server. A lot of people think, well, it's always listening. It could be sending. It apparently doesn't. We may catch it doing that someday, but we haven't. However, the problem comes when the wake word is detected. The recording is sent to the server for processing and response. That's how it knows how to tell you what time it is or play your music track or whatever. Those are the recordings that are being reviewed. Now, often it can accidentally be triggered and record something. So that would go in there too. And that's part of this review, is to decide when that has happened and tell the algorithm, hey, that was a mistake. You shouldn't have been active, to help reduce those numbers of false activations. So what do you do about the information that they have collected on you? Well, Amazon says you can stop letting recordings be used to help develop new features, although apparently sometimes your voice recordings still might be used in these reviews, and you can listen to and delete recordings in your app. Apple says it can't let you see or delete your recordings because it doesn't know which are yours, since they're not associated with any personally identifiable information, which is an interesting answer. And Google lets you listen to and delete recordings on your My Activity page, and you can switch off the web and app history tracking and voice and audio activity for Google Assistant, although that will make Google Assistant nag you a lot to turn it back on. All right, so now that we understand what they're doing, why they're doing it, and what control, if any, you have over it, how do you guys feel about this?
They're listening to me. Sorry, just kidding.
Hey, you got to get that out.
No, this is one of those stories where, to me, the devil is in the disclosure and security. It's not necessarily a bad practice by Amazon to continue to get this service better. That is what the humans are doing in this process, are listening to clips of what people are saying and matching them to get better in terms of the voice recognition, using machine learning to do that. The problem more so is exactly how much data is listed alongside your voice, and whether or not we believe as the consumers that Amazon has been transparent in saying, hey, an Amazon employee is going to see your name and your voice and the serial number of your device.
Yeah, when I see something like Amazon saying, and this was what it said to Bloomberg, this is just an extremely small sample of Alexa voice recordings. My initial question is, how many is extremely small sample?
Amazon, yeah.
It's that's vague, but okay. Let's say it's an extremely small sample, and I'm definitely of the probably should be more paranoid group. I have smart speakers in my house, several of them. I talk to them frequently, yell at them occasionally. Not too concerned about it knowing that I ask what the weather is 4 times a day, but if you think about, okay, the ultimate like paranoia situation, there have definitely been, I don't know, let's say a friend in my house who's having a very confidential conversation on the phone, and they're in my living room, and the words Taylor Swift could be part of that. I don't know why, but let's just say they are. And all of a sudden, some of that data gets extracted because it's supposed to, make the AI system better. But there is potentially a human that might get wind of this conversation and be interested by it. So I think that, it always kind of goes back to me of like, well, if nobody on Amazon side is ever being nefarious about anything, then I'm not really concerned, but I can't be assured of that.
Yeah, and it does end up being a matter of what are the percentage chances? Are the percentage chances of someone in Amazon getting that conversation, which happened to trip the wake word and then have Taylor Swift in the conversation, and the person decides to listen to the whole conversation, not just annotate the part about Taylor Swift, and passes it along to somebody, is that potential more than someone walking by your window and hearing you through your window?
Right.
And is that worse? I mean, I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but that's the thing you've got to think about. And to Justin's point earlier, it is all about transparency and control. Amazon saying you can turn off the ability to have your recordings help improve the service, but then saying, but sometimes they might still help improve the service, I'm not okay with. It's either on or off. You say your recordings can be sent to this or not, and don't say, oh, they might end up there anyway. No, that is not okay.
I actually like Apple's solution better. Where it's hey, we don't even know which are yours. We can't even tell you. We can't provide you with a library of what you've said because we don't know. That to me makes me feel more comfortable because this is necessary work. Like this is not. I don't think that what Amazon is doing here is frivolous. That they are a market leader in this field and they are continuing to maintain their position because this product, the Echo, was a out of the box success because you could just say things. That does not happen by accident. It has very, very good recognition for that reason. And this is part of it. But again, it just comes down to be clear, Amazon, and keep my name off that. That's bad. I don't like the name thing. That actually makes me.
Oh yeah. I didn't like that either.
Yeah.
Smart speaker conversations and others can all be contributed to on our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on others at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. If you like to hang out on Facebook, we've got a group, facebook.com/groups/dailytechnewsshow. All right, in an interview with our very own Justin Robert Young earlier this week on the Politics podcast, Eric Geller, who covers cybersecurity over at Politico, discussed actual risks of elections getting hacked. And here's what he thinks might become one of the more frequent attacks on voting.
One thing that we haven't heard too much about yet, but I suspect we're going to see a lot of this, is attempts to trick election administrators into just handing over their passwords, the way that John Podesta was tricked in 2016. We do know that in 2016, they hacked into a Florida-based voting technology vendor called VR Systems, and they used the access to that company to send emails to a bunch of local election officials in Florida. And if you're an election official there, you see this email from VR Systems, this is a trusted company, you're much more likely to click on it. I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of that. I think people tend to think of hacking as, the war games kind of image of the guy sitting at the computer, and all this random gibberish code passes across the screen. That's really not the most effective way to do it anymore. The best way is to trick people into handing that stuff over, and then they don't even necessarily know that they've been compromised. So once you do that, you get the info, you log in, and you can just start deleting voter information willy-nilly. And it's important to understand that if you do that and election day comes and people can't vote, they do have the right to vote on a provisional ballot. Their vote probably will be counted. But what you've done is you've undermined confidence in the system. And if I'm sitting at home at noon and I was planning to vote at 5 and I see that this is happening, maybe I'll just stay home. Maybe I won't vote. Who knows? I don't want to get mixed up in all that stuff. So you can see how that quickly becomes really problematic.
Let me tell you, folks, there's more where that came from, too. The entire 40-minute interview is packed with really good information about what the actual risks are, what people can actually do. Eric Geller covers this beat specifically. And Justin, you had a great interview with him.
Well, thank you so much, Tom. This is obviously very, rarely we get to talk about the kind of political side of things of tech. And this was a great, I think this would be a great entry for DTNS listeners to the politics ecosystem. So everybody go ahead and check it out.
TakePoliticsSeriously.com is where you can find it. All right, let's check out the mailbag.
Let's do it. Mike Kepper had a little bit of a response of our Amazon Go conversation from yesterday. Mike says, just install an ATM machine that could dispense Amazon gift cards for cash, then scan the card on entry, scan again on exit to receive change or insert more cash. I don't see any problem, but there are always people that'll try to game or scam a system. A security guard or cashier will still be necessary in any case.
That's a great idea. I don't know if it's compliant with the laws or not, but if it was, I think that's a good solution. Yeah. Also, Preston Monroe, BioCow, wrote in and mentioned that there are gates at these. So you could potentially stop someone or have an alarm go off if they left without paying or didn't have sufficient cash in some of the other solutions we were talking about. And then Warren, on the future of iTunes branding, said, I like to make the comparison of a club and a bar. You go to a bar to have a drink, and you might dance. You go to a club to dance, and you probably have a drink. iTunes started as a music file manager that could sync your player. However, it quickly became a tool for device syncing that had features such as management of all types of media files. It changed its fundamental function and became something different.
Yeah, club and a bar. Not a bad analogy, really. Good stuff.
Yeah. And I will just say to that analogy, I very rarely go to clubs and I very rarely like iTunes these days.
So there you go.
Yeah. Look, I am all aboard the kill iTunes train. I do not understand why it has continued to live this bizarre life. It lived a beautiful existence. I remember syncing with my FireWire cord, my iPod. It was one of my favorite programs. Now, when it opens, when it dares shoot its ugly head into my life, I close it as fast as possible.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of iTunes. The program itself still works for me. I know how to use it and everything, but the naming convention has bothered me, which I went into on yesterday's show, so I won't do it again. But yeah, thanks, Warren. I I'm glad you put it into perspective for us. And also thanks to Justin Robert Young for being with us today. I know you're into politics. Where can people keep up with all of your work?
Well, go ahead and check out the Politics podcast. But in general, I would also like to say in that interview, there is a furthering of the conversation that we've had on this show about Huawei and the 5G rollout. We get some comment of Eric Geller has asked a lot of the same questions that we ask on this show to government officials, and we get some of the perspective of the American government on the 5G rollout and Huawei specifically.
Excellent. Also, folks, don't forget that as a member of DTNS, you get a few extra things. For instance, that interview with Karen Howe that I mentioned, you're going to get that tomorrow evening. If you're a Patreon subscriber, so you get a little early crack at it. You'll also get an editor's desk from me this week where you get some inside info or explainers or extra stuff. It's all available. Find out everything you can get at patreon.com/DTNS.
If you've got feedback, our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're also live Monday through Friday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 20:30 UTC. Find out more and tell a friend, dailytechnewsshow.com/live.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
The Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Whoop, whoop. Oh, Lucy, you're not usually in here for the show.
She was into that politics segment.
She said it was so good. Yeah. She says, P3X, sign me up.
PX3. PX3.
She's a cat. She gets things wrong.
Drunk. Yeah.
Sorry. After all of that.
I know. Ford. Whoa, we aren't that progressive is a potential title. Google recycles old name and calls it Current. Google Currents is the new name of Google Plus. Arrest twice, try once. All aboard the kill iTunes train. Wow. Hey, Alexa, do you know who I am? I kind of like that one actually from Beat.
Pretty good, yeah.
Yeah. Sarah, any preference? Or
yeah, I mean, even though the kill iTunes train, I immediately go to, it was kind of yesterday's story. So I think the Al XA, do you know who I am? Is
hey, Alex. Do you know who I am?
Alex, hey.
Hey.
All right, I'm putting it in the doc now for you, Mr. Chang.
What would be your second favorite?
Oh,
Ford.
You could actually, there's one in there relating to the pre-show about the lake. Help us find. Oh, I guess I did say that in the actual show, didn't I? Help us find Lake Young.
Did we?
Yeah,
in the
Justin
top.
Introduced himself as being from Lake Merritt.
Oh yeah, let's go and hold on. Lake Lane.
Amazon to Burger Rack. I like that. I like the concept of that one.
All right. Lake Lane in Olean, New York.
Okay. Where's Olean?
I'm going to guess that Lake Lane might be one of the Finger Lakes.
Olean.
Like fish fingers.
Oh no, it's not one of the Finger Lakes, but it is not far from that region. Olean, New York would be
Olean.
It is south of Buffalo on the border of Pennsylvania.
What fun. I'm looking at photos now at the Lake Lane campgrounds.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Yosemite features young lakes. Upper and middle.
Of course, Justin gets more than one.
Yeah. Well, one's for Gloria.
Well, there's Lake Young's. It's a reservoir in King County, Washington.
Yosemite's closer to me, though.
That is true.
I guess I could fly up and see BioCow up in Washington.
You could.
I've come to see you in the lakes.
Take me to your lake.
Well, there's a Forestville not far from Lake Lane. Forestville, California is not far from where I grew up.
Oh, I see.
Oh, cray. And Lake Erie is also not far.
It's just a hop, skip, and a jump.
It's a big old lake. Lake Lane is a small but proud lake.
Yes, exactly.
A village lake, if you will. This is one of my favorite things to do when you get into a map and you're zoomed in enough where you're like, these tiny little towns that I've never been to.
Yeah.
And, and I start going like Sweden Valley. There's a Sweden Valley, New York,
Yeah.
guys.
Uh-huh.
Yep. There it is.
And it's
There's
full of the Norse, oddly.
There's a shingle house. I don't like the sound of that one too much.
Yeah.
Aren't
Houses with shingles are fine, but
houses with shingles? I mean, not all. I understand.
I have
They're
a house with,
roof type.
with shingles.
But shingle houses are pretty common. I wouldn't think that would be a significant factor.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's sort of like saying like Valley Glen. You're like, that's what it is. That's what it was.
Well, that's all like the majority of the Chicago suburbs are like Valley, Glen, Lake, Forest, Hills.
Right. Shingle house to me, my mind goes to getting the shingles as a human.
Oh yeah, no, that would.
So
not
like
be
you
good.
got to
I
go to
would
the
not-
shingle
yeah.
house if you're sick.
Just sounds like a Midwest version of Terrace House.
Shingle house.
You don't want to go to shingle house. Just take your vitamins.
Oh, I'm so itchy. They're gonna send me to shingle house.
Yeah.
Man, don't ever send me to
Burning
shingle house.
Well. Ooh, that's a good one.
Ooh, that sounds like you pumped oil at one point.
Burning Well, New York. Or actually, are we in Pennsylvania? Ooh, I don't know. I'll have to look at my. Yes.
Burning Well, right, with the W.
Yeah.
By the way, we had a very kind email from someone who had to scramble to turn off DTNS because we were talking about donkeys.
We were.
What?
Yes.
Well, we were using an alternative term for donkey, and we were talking about donkeys, but we were continually using the alternative term. And poor Scott didn't really think about it himself until he looked in the rearview mirror and saw the wide eyes of his 5-year-old. So I apologize to Scott for
This would be the Jack nomenclature.
correct.
Yes. And we did say it quite a few times. And again, we were trying to figure out, I don't know, species differences. So our intentions were good.
It was,
but yes.
And Scott was not lambasting us. He
No,
just
not
thought
at all.
it was really funny watching himself fumble to pause the radio, and was laughing all the way home and hopes that his wife does not hear the results of that episode.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then he said in response, because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. He said, in the grand scheme of things, it could be so much worse. At least it wasn't Justin on there with his foul mouth, aka Dr. Bird. See what I did there?
FOWL.
Foul mouth. I like it.
Dr. Bird, the foulest mouth.
The Deebs.
Just burden it up.
Yeah.
Not a care in the world.
How's the campaign for the Deebs going?
Look, he's this is it's a slow burn.
It's marathon,
he made
right?
A lot of headway on the trail beyond the cage. He is working the phones, and by that I mean he's been chewing the living hell out of. He is fascinated with chewing my iPhone case.
So you told us a little bit of this, so it hasn't stopped, huh?
It is not.
He was doing keyboards, sending text messages last time.
He was sending. Yeah, he has been less fascinated lately with the keyboard, but far more fascinated with eating my phone. He's working the phones, but other than that, he's being a bird.
Does Dr. Bird like pasta?
We have given him pasta. He's okay with it. His favorite is spinach. He loves spinach.
Interesting.
He has
Our cockatiel when I was a kid, there were certain things that he liked for reasons that were never understood by the rest of us.
Yeah.
Pasta was one of them.
dry pasta or cooked.
No, cooked pasta. It was a combination of eating it and kind of flinging it. So it was messy and horrible. But once he saw the spaghetti, he would be like, he'd do like, I'm a sweet bird, and like sing songs so he could have a little bit of it.
Yeah.
Was it cooked or was it just like
It was cooked. Yeah, no, it wasn't dry. It was just, a string or a ribbon of whatever we were eating, and you give it to him and he'd be really happy for like 30 minutes.
I wonder if he thought it was a worm.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, actually.
Food, but it would just
kind of
make
looked
him
like
really
a worm.
it would make him really happy. Well, but it wasn't always spaghetti.
Yeah.
We'd have pasta. We'd have pasta in lots of forms. It was the pasta that he liked.
Their cockatiels are very textural.
Okay,
like,
all right.
They like chewing different things, and also I suspect that they kind of have this love-hate relationship with getting things stuck on their beaks. Like,
right, which was where the fling would come from. He'd get kind of pasta build up and then start making a real mess.
Like, we'll give Dr. Bird or some of the other birds rice sometimes, and he'll build up a little rice beard.
Cooked rice, I assume.
Cooked rice.
Yeah. Not raw.
Not raw. No, raw is extraordinarily bad for them.
Yeah.
It expands in their tiny little tummies.
Oh.
So it's bad for pretty much any creature that eats raw rice.
Yes.
Yeah, including us. Don't eat your raw rice, kids. You hear that?
Yeah, if for any of you that were doing that.
Yeah, enough of that. None of those
Don't
Tide
take that
Pods
raw
either.
rice. That raw rice challenge that's going around on TikTok.
Yeah.
The raw rice challenge.
Oh, gosh, what did Squeakers used to? He loved pasta. He didn't love to eat sponges, but he loved to be petted with a sponge.
Yeah.
Oh, the sponge. It was his favorite thing. It was as if he was in love with
the sponge.
Sponges. Yeah. It was his greatest moment. Strange. It's weird. Birds are weird, but it was so cute. It was so cute. Yeah. When you get a new sponge, it'd be like, oh, let's pet
Town
him.
Road.
Some
people like
kind of flap his wings and be really excited.
Oh, by the way, TikTok by Bloomberg reporting that Uber has filed their IPO.
Filed it now. Very good.
Under the ticker Uber.
Yeah, they got Uber. Wow. Yeah, so this was expected that it would happen today. The other thing that's going to happen today that I haven't yet seen word about is Disney giving their Disney Plus presentation. They're going to explain all about Disney Plus to investors and stuff. I haven't seen any. Yeah. So we might find out some more deets. Oh, most of that stuff's out there already, but apparently Hawkeye is going to have a Marvel series.
So really?
If you thought Endgame was going to be the end for Hawkeye, apparently not. He's going to have a series on Disney.
Well, yeah, I mean, it could be a prequel.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, he is.
Right. I'm not trying to spoil Endgame. I'm just, I kind of thought maybe he would not want to do the part anymore after that, whether his character, lived or died. But it sounds like he will definitely be doing that.
Are you aware of how weird Jeremy Renner is?
I mean,
no,
probably not, given what you're telling me. Hold that thought. Hold that thought. Video folks, don't forget tomorrow Patrick Norton's on the show. He's going to be talking about headphones. He's going to be talking about high quality music service. So stick around. Come back for that. Audio folks, stick around to find out just how weird Jeremy Renner is.